1, 2, testing 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Thank you, Daniel. Good afternoon and welcome to the regulatory section of the hybrid meeting of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee. Can I ask everyone to please mute their mics at all times unless invited to speak? For those of you who are physically in the chamber, can I please remind you that when speaking, you need to wait until you see yourself on the screen so the live feed can pick up your comments. If you speak before your image is projected, those listening on the live feed or the Zoom won't hear anything you say. This is obviously particularly important in the case of a vote being required. Audio recording is being used to assist in preparing the formal minutes. Therefore, anyone participating in the meeting consents to it being recorded and then live streamed on YouTube. Agenda item 1 is apologies. I have Councillor Nicholson. He'll be along at some point, and Saoirse will be along as well. About 4, is that right, Kevin? You say, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I'm not aware of any others. I'm assuming everybody else will be along at 4 if they're not here. Right. Okay. So there'll be a few more coming, which is good. We'll move then into agenda item 2, declarations of interest, and as usual, we'll take them as we progress. And just a slight change to the run order, we're going straight to agenda item 5, which is the confidential report. And so we'll move straight into it, and I'm going to read the following statement as usual. So, oh, sorry, yeah, getting carried away there. I need a proposer, of course. Proposed. A second. Thank you. Okay, so I'll read this statement. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into a confidential session of the Council. This means we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask the ICT officer to please turn off the live feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of this meeting can proceed? Thank you. Okay, we'll move then to agenda item 3, which is back to Damien for an update on our caseloads. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, yes, just to give you some, I know we didn't have a report on this matter last month because of certain issues, but just to give you some statistics around caseloads and decisions issued and so on. Between the 5th of December and the 24th of January, which is the reporting period for this month, we issued 24 planning decisions. We received over the same period 171 new planning applications. And currently our live caseload stands at 1,017. And members, I would ask you to bear in mind these figures are approximate because of an inability to run a live report off the system at the moment. So they're based on manual calculations, but they are the figures that I can provide you at the moment. Just in relation to the enforcement update for Q3, you'll see from the report that the current live enforcement caseload stands at 365, which has come down, members, from the end of Q2, where it was 425. So significant progress has been made on that front. The number of enforcement cases received during Q3 was 86, yet we closed 123. So that is good news. Members, you will recall that our live caseload rose significantly during the pandemic, and that in May 2022, that figure stood at 1,095. By November, just before the new IT system came in, that number had reduced to 870. Therefore, significant progress had been made, but unfortunately, numbers have arisen again for reasons I've outlined already during this meeting. That is to be expected, I suppose, at the current time, but we hope to see those numbers go down again as time progresses, and obviously members will be kept updated as we go forward. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions on that one? Okay, so that's an item for information. So we'll move then to agenda item 4, which is Tom's side of things. So Tom, if you go with 4.1 when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Item 4.1 is a request for the naming of a development, 4 dwellings at Derryleigh Road in Macquarie, detailed in Appendix 1. The applicant's preferred name for this development is Ferryside View, and the applicant's main reason for the preferred name is that the development backs onto the River Blackwater and has a view down to the new footbridge where the old ferry used to cross the river. The applicant further advises that people in the area may also recall that the old hotel in the village had a bar called the Ferryside Inn, and the applicant believes the naming the development with Ferryside in its name would be a reflection of the history of the village. Officers of assess indeed the proposal is compliant with the policy, and the recommendation therefore is for members' approval for the name of Ferryside View for this development. Happy to take any questions members may have.
Thank you, Tom. Members, you've heard Tom's commentary. Councillor Laver.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Tom. Yeah, I've heard stories of the old ferry. They're down at Blackwater, indeed, down at the Bandfoot as well, on the band. So intent regarding this name, be happy to propose it.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Duffy.
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second the proposal.
Okay, thanks. I don't see any other. We all agreed then. I have to take it on that front. Moving on then, Psalm 4.2, which is the ABCA conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is reported bringing members' attention to the IBCI conference, which will be held on the 29th and 30th of March in Athlone. The focus of this year's conference is the emerging developments and implementation of building control systems and new building regulations. The conference provides an opportunity for networking with colleagues in the building control environment and to develop better understanding and learning for the different systems operating. It also provides an opportunity to discuss current and potential forthcoming implications on the construction industry, including changes and developments of regulatory requirements and the impact of Brexit and global markets on the construction industry. Members are also encouraged to attend, particularly as IBCI would strongly support our own fire safety conference taking place in the Armagh City Hotel later this month. Costs are detailed in the report, and the recommendation therefore is members are asked to approve attendance of the chair of the committee and or their nominee at the conference along with officers. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, members, any queries or questions? It is an item for information. Any queries? Was it a decision? Says it. Yeah, that's what I thought when I was reading my notes here. It is an item for decision, members. So Alderman Twyvell.
I'm just happy to propose.
Councillor Duffy.
I'll second. Chair, thank you.
Okay, members, thank you. We'll move on then to item 4.3, which is an update on building control and property certificate application workloads. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Chair. This is to keep members up to date of the workloads of the department in the first 10 months. Over this last 10 months, we have received 2,896 applications with a notional and construction investment value in the region of just over £360 million, which is just over 100 million more than last year, which was seen as a significant year. We've also carried out over 12,320 inspections, site inspections, and undertaken 1,979 plan assessments and issued all the appropriate statutory notices. The department also continued to deliver the property certificate function for the conveyance of properties. In the 10 months, we've received and administered 2,914 new applications and issued 3,002 certificates to solicitors and agents relating to the property sales. Thank you, Chair. This is members' information, but I'm happy to take any questions that members may have.
Do you, Tom, any queries, members, or questions? I don't see any lights on. And thanks again to our planners and our building control department for their sterling efforts and they're tackling their workloads. It's appreciated, especially from an economic perspective for the borough. So I don't have any lights, members, and that brings us to the end. I have no correspondence and I have no other relevant business that has been made known to me anyway. So on that basis, we will take a short recess and we'll come back at 4:05, given the lateness of the hour here, to start going through our application. So we can stop the live feed. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the planning section of the hybrid meeting of our Planning and Regulatory Services Committee. Can I ask everybody to please mute their mics at all times unless invited to speak? For those of you who are physically in the council chamber, can I please remind you that when speaking on your mic, you need to wait until you see yourself on the screen so the live feed can pick up your comments. If you speak before your image is projected, those listening on the live feed or via Zoom won't hear anything you say. This is obviously particularly important in the case of a vote being required. Audio recording is being used to assist in preparing the formal minutes. Therefore, anybody participating in the meeting consents to it being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. Also, during the course of this meeting, questions may be asked by councillors who are members of the committee, applicants for planning permission, objectors, or those speaking on their behalf. In doing so, councillors endeavour to ascertain the information which they feel is necessary to enable them to determine the application. However, members of the public should note that councillors won't reach a conclusion as to whether an application should be approved, refused, or deferred until the debate on the application has concluded. So moving to agenda item appendix 1, given that my employer, William Irwin MLA, is going to be making representations in this, I'm going to vacate the chair for this portion of the meeting and hand over to Councillor Savage, who will take members through the report and associated debate. Thank you.
Okay, members, we're going to take appendix 1 and 2. There'll be one presentation, but there'll be 2 separate decisions. So Roisin is going to do just one presentation on the both, but we'll be making 2 separate decisions. So we also have, as the chair said, William Irwin MLA to make representation in support of the application, and also in attendance online we have Brian McKervey from HED, Natalie O'Rourke from HED, and Maeve Morgan also from HED. So at this stage, I'm going to invite Roisin, our Principal Planning Officer, to give us her report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. As advised by the Chair, I propose to present both Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 together as they relate to the same application site. One is a full application and the other is a listed building consent application. In relation to Appendix 2, please note that refusal reason number 1 is being dropped, but all other reasons for refusal remain as per the officer report. Both applications are retrospective applications for the retention of a change of use from an existing dwelling to an events venue to include guest accommodation, retention of the demolition of courtyard buildings, and retention of rear extensions and ancillary work, including new entrance pillars and walls on lands at Grace Hall, Cottage Road, Dollingstown. Grace Hall is an 18th century house and is a Grade B listed building. A total of 6 third-party objections to the proposal have been received, raising issues including road safety, impact and visibility from other accesses, the visual impact of the proposal, and the impact of the development on the listed building. The proposal has been assessed against the SPPS and policy CTY4 of PPS 21, which relates to the conversion and reuse of buildings. The SPPS states that provision should be made for the sympathetic conversion and reuse of a suitable locally important building of special character or interest for a variety of alternative uses where this would secure its upkeep and retention, and where the nature and scale of the proposed non-residential use would be appropriate to its countryside location. Officers are content that Grace Hall meets the definition of a locally important building and are satisfied that the principle of the use is acceptable. Officers are satisfied that the proposal will not have a detrimental impact on the countryside or on the amenity of nearby residents. In terms of access and traffic, officers are also satisfied that the proposed parking provision will adequately cater for the proposed parking requirements and the access arrangement is acceptable. However, the proposal seeks retrospective permission for the demolition of rear courtyard buildings which were protected as curtilage structures and which contributed to the setting of the listed building. No information was submitted to demonstrate why these buildings could not have been retained in their original or reasonably modified form. Officers in consultation with HED are of the view that the character and architectural and historical layout of the farmyard has been significantly altered to the detriment of its original special character, shape and form by the demolition works which the application seeks to retain. Furthermore, alterations have been carried out to the Jordan building, both internally and externally, which are considered to unduly affect the character and architectural or historic interest. Traditional features of the building have not been respected, resulting in the essential character of the building being lost. With regards to the extension of the listed building, officers in consultation with HED consider that the scale and massing of the new extensions is out of keeping with the scale, form and massing of the buildings previously on site, and the extensions have significantly altered the proportions, character and spatial composition of the courtyard and constitute a dominant presence on the site in relation to the listed building. Also, it has not been demonstrated that the works proposed will make use of traditional or sympathetic building materials, and has not been demonstrated that the architectural details will be in keeping with the listed building. Members should note that the works carried out to the listed building constitute a direct offence, and there is no time limit for immunity. For the reasons set out in the report, officers in consultation with HED are recommending that both applications be refused as they do not comply with the relevant policies set out in PPS 6. And with regards to the full applications, also recommended that the proposal does not comply with all of the criteria set out in CTY 4 of PPS 21 for the same reasons. And I'll just take you through the slides. And you can see the red arrow shows you where the location of the site is, just to the north of Dollingstown. And these are current aerial views of the site. I know it might be a bit difficult to see, but the main Grace Hall is to the bottom left corner of the building works, and you can see the extensions to the back going up and to the east. And these are aerial views of the site back in 2007. And again, you can see the main Grace Hall in the bottom corner. And you can see the extent of the building works to the rear. Those are the works that have been removed. And this is our site location plan, just so on the application site outlined in red. This might give you a better indication of the works that have, or the buildings that have been demolished. Grace Hall is to the top right of the drawn, and the area shaded green are the curtilage structures that have been demolished. And this gives you an idea of the existing proposed layout. Now, obviously, this is for retention of. So when we talk about existing layout, the layout is what was there before the new works had taken place. So on the right-hand side, you can see the existing layout with Grace Hall in the bottom corner and the rear curtilage buildings. And on the left-hand side, you can see what they're proposing to retain. And you can see, obviously, the extensions are larger. This is the existing and proposed front elevation. So this is taken from the front of Grace Hall, and obviously the extensions relate to a courtyard to the rear of the building. So the front elevation, but you know, the views from this part of the site don't really change. These are views from inside the courtyard, and on the bottom, looking to the west, is the buildings that would have been in place, and you can see the profile of the land as well. Prior to the works having been carried out. And on the top of the slide, that is the new build. That's the elevation of the new build, extensions to the rear of the host property. And this is looking from the outside of the courtyard, looking at the same extension. And again, you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, that is Grace Hall, and the extension extend to the left. On the bottom is the elevation of the buildings that existed prior to the works being carried out. On the top is the new build. This is looking towards the back of the main property, Grace Hall, and this is sort of section through the site. Again, on the top, you can see the profile or the section through the site of the new build, and below that is a section through the site, again showing you the size and scale of the extensions as existed prior to the works being carried out. And the bottom profile or the bottom elevations are looking at towards the back of the courtyard, and on the top right-hand side, you can see like a small courtyard building that has been removed. And I get on over to the left, you can see the elevation that exists now on the ground. And again, this is looking back towards the other side of the courtyard. This is the other elevation, but no changes have taken place in this part of the courtyard building, so the elevations remain as is. And this gives you an idea of when we talk about existing and proposed ground floor plans. On the right-hand side, that is the floor plan of the property as existed prior to work taking place. And on the left-hand side, well, obviously you can see the size of the new rear extensions that have taken place. And again, on the first floor plan, that gives you an indication of what of the layout prior to works taking place on the right-hand side, and then the floor plan post works taking place on the left-hand side. And again, these are, I know they're probably a bit difficult to see, but these are existing and proposed entrance details. So they're proposing new pillars and walls here. There was work carried out, building walls. These have been reduced in size and scale, but they're not finished as per the drawings that have now been submitted with the application. This is an elevation of the front of the property. This is Grace Hall itself. And as I say, the building works have taken place to the rear of the property. And this is an existing view of the entrance at the moment. You can see a wall on the right-hand side that is not finished. It was taller than that. I think it has been reduced in scale somewhat. They're now proposing to finish that wall with a pillar 2 meters high, and then towards the roadside 1.6 meters high. And this is just a view of the parking area to the east side of Grace Hall itself. This is a view, right? Yeah, that's a view taken looking toward the back of Grace Hall from the courtyard. This is the courtyard area, so this is probably the most sizable new extensions that have taken place, and this extends out from the back and curves round to the back of the courtyard to the rear of Grace Hall. This is a view of the same extension taken from outside the courtyard, looking at the other elevation, and again Grace Hall would be to the right hand side of the picture, and that extends down towards the back of the courtyard. And again, you can see Grace Hall itself on the far right hand side, and that building to the left, the lower building, is all the new build. And that's just the lower end of the new build. And that's just a photograph from the front looking into the courtyard, and you can see just in through the it's not an archway, and through the opening, there is a portion of new build there which hasn't yet been completed. And these are just a couple of photographs of inside the building, the function rooms and bar from the completed function rooms. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you, members.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Roisin. I'd now like to invite with 3 members of staff from HED, and I just want to ask, have they anything to add at this stage, or would they rather wait?
I'm Brian McKervey, and I'm the principal architect in HED. So firstly, to point out that Grace Hall is protected as a building of special architectural and historic interest. And our position is that, well, there are 3 areas. One is the works to Grace Hall itself. Work have been undertaken, and we have sought details for that. And can you hear me okay?
It's freezing a bit, Brian, but continue on.
Well, I'll talk about the farmyard buildings in the first instance. Our position is that the character and architectural and historic layout of the farmyard and the courtyard area have been significantly altered to the detriment of the original special character, shape and form, and the works involved involve consider remodeling, including the demolition significantly to the setting of the listed building. We consider that the works are inappropriate, and in terms of its scale and massing are very significant. In terms of the inappropriateness, the floor area has effectively been doubled, and the buildings are much wider, and there is little recognition of them being rural vernacular return buildings, farm buildings. And our position is that we are wholly supportive of the council's position, the council's planner's recommendation.
Thank you very much, Brian. Okay, members, I'm now going to invite Mr. William Irvin, LMLA, to make a representation in support of the application. And Mr. Irvin, because we're going to take, there's one presentation, you can have up to 10 minutes if you wish to speak. We're going to take 2 separate decisions, but if you speak in notes to 2 of them, you can have them in one go, but you have 10 minutes to speak once the clock starts. Are you content with that? Well, when members ask you questions, you can come back in. Is that okay? Okay, Mr. Irvin. So I'll get you started now. I want you to start.
Okay. Can I thank the committee for the opportunity to speak today? And first of all, can I apologize on behalf of the agent, David Herr, who is out of the country on a cruise and can't make it back for the meeting tonight. So it's unfortunate that he can't be here. He had been in a better position to answer some of the questions maybe that would be asked later than I would be. Can I, first of all, give you the committee some background to Grace Hall. The farm at Grace Hall was purchased by the Patterson family in 1989. Grace Hall's main house and outbuildings were purchased as part of the farm. After purchasing the farm, Mr. Patterson realised that the main house at Grace Hall was in a serious bad state of repair. The roof was leaking badly and water damaging both upper and lower floors of the building. 2 years after the purchase of Grace Hall, Mr. Patterson re-roofed the entire roof, taking off the original slates and tiles and replacing them with the same tiles. Done this, of course, he had purchased the farm at a large price at that time, and money was tight, and he'd done this work all himself to restore the building. A number of years later, Mr. Patterson completely restored Grace Hall. In effect, if the house had not been re-roofed in 1992, the building would have fallen to rack and ruin. I believe that Mr. Patterson has to be commended for re-roofing and indeed restoring the building to its former glory. Some 9 years ago, Mr. Patterson built a large function room and kitchen area to the rear of the main building. The buildings that were removed to do that were in the main corrugated tin and lane 2 type that were anything but significant in the average person's eyes. Grace Hall is now extensively used with couples coming from all over Northern Ireland to have their wedding receptions held there, and the venue is used for many other functions such as farm meetings. Indeed, this council itself has used the facility on a number of occasions, the most recent being just a number of weeks ago. Grace Hall's ideal location, it's sited just 4 miles from the Mara roundabout junction, just under 3 miles from Lurgan. It has now become one of the prime venues for weddings and functions, not only in the council area, but also indeed right across Northern Ireland and beyond. Can I say that, including my remarks on this, can I say that the Patterson family have made a huge contribution to the ABC Council and spent tens of thousands of pounds to make Grace Hall the superb hospitality venue that it is. Not only that, but the family have provided much needed employment for the area as well. Council area is crying out for more top-end accommodation and hospitality, and Grace Hall fits that bill. Before making any decision, I'd urge the committee members to visit Grace Hall and see for themselves the excellent venue that it is. Thank you again for considering my comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Irwin, for your comments well within time there. Okay, members, just to remind us, we're just looking at application number LA08/2018/0349/F, the first application. We'll move into questions now. I'll maybe start the ball rolling if you don't mind. Members at home, please, if you have any queries, please put your thumbs up and we'll certainly bring us in. Roisin, in terms of this application, what brought it to the attention of the planning office that this work had been done? And was there any reason given for the nature of these works to be done to a listed building without planning permission? And indeed, is it maybe a case of they're now seeking forgiveness rather than permission? So I'd just like you to maybe answer the inquiries, Roisin.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we were alerted to works having been carried out at Grace Hall by a third party, and we opened an enforcement investigation. And obviously, that enforcement investigation is still ongoing, so I really can't, divulge any more information than that. Subsequent to us opening an enforcement investigation, these applications were submitted to regularise, obviously, to seek to regularise the work that had been done. Now, further action hasn't been taken because we obviously have to determine the applications. No further action will be taken while these applications are still under consideration. And we have had meetings, obviously, with the applicant and agent. In terms of why they did the work, well, obviously they wanted to run a business. They wanted to get Grace Hall up and running. But why they didn't come to us first, that hasn't really been, sort of articulated to us.
Thank you very much for that, Roisin. Members, is there any further questions? Thank you. Alderman Anderson will bring you in now.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks, Roisin, for the report. And light of your response to the Vice Chair, did I pick up that this was still enforcement, still ongoing? And if that is the case, can we look at this application when there is a live, ongoing enforcement case? Is that possible? Just some clarification on that. And
oh, sorry, Alderman.
And could also ask maybe Brian of the HED what their opinion is. Is that just on the farmyard and courtyard and not on the main building? Not as we look on the front of the building, which appears to be as it were. And it doesn't seem to have changed. Maybe Brian could give us some indication on that. But those are two issues. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alderman Anderson. Roisin, I'll bring in the clarify because my understanding was enforcement was paused, as you said there, but could you just clear that up first, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, that's correct. Enforcement investigation was opened, and shortly after the investigation was opened, these applications were submitted to try and regularise the development that had taken place. And we wouldn't really proceed with enforcement action until these applications were determined, until we decided if the proposal was acceptable or not.
Okay, thank you, Roisin. I'll bring Brian in first, Alderman Anderson, and then bring you back in. Is that all right? Brian, could I bring you in now to answer Alderman Anderson's question in regard to the main building and the buildings, outbuildings?
Well, we know that there's been extensive internal works have been carried out to the buildings are protected because they're curtilage structures. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you maybe want to start again, or Brian, please, because
Okay.
it goes a bit.
Okay, with regard to the main house, that's the principal listed building, we've noted that extensive internal works have been carried out. Now, our department requested detailed existing and proposed drawings for all works carried out. But other than the owner's verbal description, that information remains outstanding. And consequently, there remains insufficient detail to assess the extent of change of use to the main house. With regard to the farmyard courtyard, our position is that they've been significantly altered, and the current buildings, their composition now constitutes a much more dominant, inappropriate presence on the site compared to what was there existing. In addition, the materials are out of keeping with that. There's PVC windows, etc. And we consider that the use of non-traditional and non-sympathetic materials is unacceptable and contrary to the requirements of policy BH8. It has also resulted in the considerable remodeling of existing site levels to the farmyard and beyond with negative consequences. There's one further issue that I want to raise, and that's the entrance gates. So the entrance gates, walls and features are considered to be curtilage structures and as such are protected under the listing. But in this case, the works implemented within are incongruous to the scale, massing and height to there previously. So we consider that there's no historical justification for dimensions or larger estates across Northern Ireland. So consequently, in their present proposals, they do not satisfy the policy requirements of BH8 or BH11.
Thank you very much, Brian. Yeah. Thank you for answering them questions. Members, any further questions in relation to this application? Anybody at home? No. Okay. So we'll move into the debate stage. Members, you've heard from HED, you've heard from Mr. Irwin MLA, and you've also heard from Roisin. Has anybody any thoughts on the merits of this application and the decision? Councillor Wilson, I'll bring you in now.
Thank you, Chair. Just probably this has obviously been extensively used as a function venue, and we've heard Mr. Irwin say obviously our council has used this. Obviously, this is the main income of this family. I don't know what sort of a financial impact would that have on the family if this was refused. I would say it would have significant. Not only in the family, but obviously employees and the subsequent people that supplying them, and all that would have a very detrimental impact on the Patterson family.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'll ask Roisin firstly, and then I'll ask Mr. Irwin. Roisin, there was an addendum report about that. Could you take us through the highlights of that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we received fairly recently an economic statement from the applicant, sort of setting out in their view, what the wider the assessment of the economic and wider impacts would be, okay? And it includes figures of revenue generated from events already held, and it forecasts events that will be held in the future, and the revenue that would be generated from those, although it doesn't really substantiate, the figures in terms of the events that would be held and the increase in those. It does go on to detail weddings that have been held at Grace Hall and where those people have come from. And it talks about the impact on tourism. So there is some information there. However, it doesn't go into any detail on direct and indirect jobs, on wages in the council area. It doesn't substantiate the benefits that are referred to in the document. It doesn't give any detail on gross added value, which is a key measure of the value generated by a project in the local economy. There's no analysis of displacement to other events in the borough and outside the borough. It doesn't really set out in economic terms the need for the size and scale of this extension and the implications that there would be if this were to be, for example, removed or no longer used. So in terms of an economic report, it doesn't really go far enough. There's information missing there. And for that reason, we're not giving it, we're giving it very limited weight in the assessment of the application, and it doesn't set aside our concerns with regard to the impact on the listed building as set out in the report.
I'll just bring in Damien. You've indicated you wish to speak.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to elaborate on what Roisin said, because obviously what Roisin was setting out there, the concerns around the economic statement, which is absolutely right. But I suppose, look, it is worth just mentioning, Chair, that there is a plan and policy statement which members may be aware of. It's PPS 23 called Enabling Development. Now, this basically allows for established planning policy to be set aside where, in order to secure the long-term use and future of what's called a significant place, which includes a listed building. But in order to enable the planning authority, the council, to consider doing that, there would have to be the submission of a statement of justification by the applicant. And that statement of justification has to address a number of criteria, one of which is that they would say the conservation of the listed building would not be financially viable without the proposal that they're putting forward. Now, that hasn't been done. So we have had some economic information which Roisin has set out, but they haven't gone as far as setting out a statement of justification under PPS 23, which is available to them. We are where we are with this application in terms of we know what the environmental concerns are. There is an economic statement, but Roisin has highlighted the flaws within it. And at the moment, there's limited determining what can be given to that economic statement. So the environmental side of things has been given more weight, if you like, members. So look, it's just to make you aware of that particular policy and its existence. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Damien. And Mr. Irwin, I'll ask you, have you any information in regard to Councillor Wilson's questions that you want to add at this time?
Thank you again. I believe that if it was the committee's, this council's wish that more information can be got in relation to the economic benefits of this. But certainly, it's a very widely used venue. People come from all over Northern Ireland to use the facilities. And indeed, as I've said, this council has used it on a number of occasions. So with this, HED talks about the main building, but without Mr. Patterson and his family restoring this building, it wouldn't even be there today. The building was raining in 25, 20, 30 years ago. There was no one there to repair it. HED wasn't going to repair it. He was in a position whereby the building was raining in and been seriously damaged, and he went at great expense to himself to restore and repair that building. The buildings that were taken away were in the main corrugated tin lane 2 type that were of very little significance, irrespective of what HED believes or says. And more information can be given in relation to what was actually taken away, and as far as the economic benefits of the area is concerned, if it was the council's wish that more information is brought forward, we can do that. That can be done.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Irwin. Alderman Anderson, bring you back in.
Thank you, Chair. And certainly what Mr. Irwin's saying here, Grace Hall is a very popular venue, and it is a great venue for this particular area here and further afield. Taking what he's saying here, it would appear that things were going to end up in a pile of rubble. And coming from past experience, I can also say that in the past I was involved with a thatched cottage, which ended up in a pile of rubble. And, you know, it's not easy if you maybe sometimes jump through hoops here and end up having to go out with a lot of expense to retain and maintain listed buildings. Just coming back on the statement of justification, as Damien has said in TPS 23, was that asked for, or is the possibility to give time to get that and tie it in with maybe a more clarified economic type statement to allow us to look at this in a more detailed manner? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Anderson. Look, I'll ask Damien or Roisin to answer the question about economic appraisal. I think that's sort of you're being towards a proposal. We'll move on to that in a wee while, Alderman Anderson. So, because I'd moved the debate and then Councillor Wilson asked a question, which is a very pertinent one. I do have asked another one. So, look, we'll get this question out of the road. And if there's any questions, members, please put your hands up or your lights on now, because after this question, if there's no lights on, we'll be moving into the discussion phase. So, Roisin, I'll bring you in now, okay?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we did have meetings with the applicant and his agent during the course of the application, obviously setting out our concerns, setting out HED concerns, and advising them of the policy requirements and inviting them to submit any additional information that they wanted to submit. We had this on a list for a committee, I think, towards the end of last year, and we were advised at that point in time that there would be more economic information submitted. So it was pulled from the list and wasn't presented to committee. So this economic statement just came in within the last few days. So the information was asked for and we did wait for it, but it wasn't forthcoming during the course of the application. What we got was only very late in the day, which is why we continue to proceed to present.
Yeah, thank you very much. Roisin, you content with that, Alderman Anderson?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Roisin, for your explanation. So, really, the detail, would you agree that's in the economic statement maybe is not fully given all the details that would need to support the economic sort of background to this business? That being the case, it's late in the day to get that, and it would take time to get that and to get the full view on it. So I think that's where I'm coming from here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alderman Anderson. Members, any further questions? So, well, members, we'll move into the debate stage then, as there's nobody at home's any questions, so move into the debate stage. So, members, we have a recommendation for this one for refusal. It is a bit of a delicate balancing act for us because, you know, ultimately we can't get the position where this council says, you know, you can do something and then we'll forgive you for it. But also there is the economic benefits of this application that have been highlighted, but probably need more information regarding. My thoughts is at the minute that and it's only my thoughts, members, so please feel free to give your own, is that we possibly go down the route of deferring any decision tonight and ask the applicants to provide information that would possibly satisfy the conditions that Damien outlined earlier. So, members, that's just my thoughts at the minute. You know, I would be more than happy to hear your thoughts, and then once we have them, we can move to proposals and decisions. So I'm going to bring in Councillor Duffy first. I think Councillor Duffy got in first rather than Councillor Lavery. So I'm going to bring in Councillor Duffy first, and then I'll bring in Councillor Lavery.
Yes, Chair, I sort of agree with your opinion. It's just a shame because it actually looks like it's been done a fantastic job he's done on the building, and it probably would be in rubble, and HED can tie in nuts and costs, and right through COVID, the whole lot, they probably just didn't have the money or just hadn't got the patience maybe to even go down the system of a plan for this and a plan for that and getting them down to make sure everything was okay and what he was doing. But you have to also send the message out if the planning department do ask you and give you plenty of time to get the information, you should make that effort to actually get the information in. But that's just my opinion on it. You, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duffy. And I will now bring in Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the speakers who provided information on this. I thought it was a very informative debate. Certainly, Chair, I'd agree with your sort of remarks, you know, about the potential situation of asking forgiveness rather than permission. I think the rules should apply to us all equally and all applications equally. So I think that must be noted. And I think there were strong arguments from the presenters regarding the historical environment and protections, which are much needed. I do acknowledge that I think there could be more information with regards to the economic information. And I think that it would be appropriate as a committee that we, as you suggested, Chair, wait to obtain all the information before we make a decision, because I think that this is, you know, it is an important decision we have to make here. So it'd be sort of leaning to what you're saying, Chair, potentially deferring the application to get all of the economic advice before we make a final decision on this application. But that would just be my own penny's worth.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Lavery. I'll bring in Alderman Twible now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And really just when I was reading these papers this afternoon before the meeting, I first of all couldn't quite understand the structures of the papers that came to us. But my immediate instinct was to have some sort of support for the retention of a building of this nature. I think there are few enough of them about the countryside, and we should be doing all we can to retain them and develop them and so on. And to see that someone has obviously had to respond to circumstances to actually prevent the building falling apart. I suppose maybe that's putting it too strongly, but certainly the owner had to do some work to restore the building. And I think we should have some sort of way of supporting him in that. And so I think the other speakers have all said we have enough sympathy to postpone, to allow response to happen and deal with the matter again. But my instinct would be for approval of this in the long run. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your thoughts, sir. Alderman Twyble. I will now bring in Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I concur with your suggestion that we need a wee bit more economic information, and obviously other speakers there have sort of echoed your thoughts and sentiments as well. You know, we see entertainment venues now. We're coming over the pandemic. A lot of them is closed. A lot of people have been struggling to maintain these venues, and I see some figures here on income and forecast income. I'm sure from 2020 the income has probably fallen through the floor, and to maintain a building of that there, I'm sure it's relied upon this income is generated to maintain that building in such a high standard. So I think we really do need a wee bit more information on the economic side of what the income is, the impact on the local community as regards employment, suppliers to that venue for events, I'm sure for catering and functions and different things. So I totally agree with your sentiments, Chair, that we need a wee bit more information. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Wilson. Members, we've had a good debate. We've had a good discussion there in relation to this. I think we've got maybe a direction of travel. So we'll move into the decision phase, and this is for Appendix 1. So we're just looking at the first application here. So members, if you're content, I will make a proposal that we defer a decision on LAO 8/2018/0349/F for further information so that we can consider the economic benefits of the application, and that the plan department contact the applicants and get exactly what is required to allow us to consider that we can give any determined weight to the economic benefits. So I'm going to make that a proposal. Members, so is there a seconder? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second your proposal on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. So members, there we have it. We have a decision to defer Appendix 1 for further information. Are we all agreed? Great, thank you. Just look at the proposal, please. Yeah. Members, in light of the decision for the first one, I don't think there's any point having a debate on the second one, because this information will inform the first one. So could I have a proposer that we defer application LAO 8/2018/0340/LBC for the reasons outlined for the first one? And I'll bring in Councillor Wilson.
I'm happy to propose accordingly, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. I'll bring in Alderman Anderson.
Happy to second, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Anderson. So members, we all agreed on Appendix 2? Yes. Okay, members, so that's them first two out of the road. I would like to thank the members of staff from HCD for their input today, and likewise to Mr. Irwin, MLA, for his representations. So this will be deferred for further information. Okay, so we'll get the chair back in, folks.
Okay, thanks, members. And I'm informed that Appendix 3 has been withdrawn at the request of the applicant. So with it now off the agenda, we'll move then to consider Appendix 5 because we have speakers present for it. So Sinead McAvoy is going to be presenting on this one, on application LA 08-2022-001F. So Sinead, when you're ready, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The application seeks full planning permission for a proposed food processing facility with oatmeal, associated processing, packaging and distribution facilities. And the reason it's being presented to the Planning and Regulatory Service Committee is because it's a major application. Officers have taken that members have read the report in full, and as such, this is a synopsis only. As set out in the report, the proposal is accompanied by an environmental statement. While the report states that this was a voluntary statement, officers would advise this was actually submitted on the foot of a pre-application screening determination by officers on the 10th of December 2021, advising that one was required. The application site is located within the development limit of Craigavon urban area on land zoned as existing industrial land. The zoned land has 6 key site requirements, and as set out in the report, the proposal complies to those where relevant. Having regard to the plan and the relevant policies, officers of the opinion that the principle of the development is acceptable at this location. The design, siting, layout, materials and landscape treatment of proposed development has been fully considered. The proposal is for a purpose-built facility. As such, there is an operational requirement for a mill section of the building to be 42 metres in height. However, while there is relatively limited scope to be creative with the functional design of this part of the building, substantial options and design solutions were advanced through the pad stage to ensure the design would not result in any damage to visual amenity. This included careful consideration to the position of the building on the site, types of material and colour, and landscape integration. The layered approach to the overall finishes of this section of the building will add interest, but importantly will reduce the apparent bulk of the building with a softer appearance as the height increases. The mill section occupies a 750 square metre footprint within an overall 16,000 square metre building. Overall, whilst the proposed building will be visible from a number of viewpoints, officer of the opinion it will not have an unacceptable impact on local character or amenity. As regards to impact on amenity, officers in consultation with the Environmental Health Department are satisfied that given the layout, construction type and separation distance involved in the construction and operation phase of this development, combined with the planning conditions imposed, it is not expected to give rise to any unacceptable adverse impact on the amenity of residential properties and as such complies with the SPPS and Annex A thereof. Due to the height of an element of the proposal, an environmental statement was required to assess if the proposed development is likely to have significant effect on the environment by virtue of its size. The environmental statement includes landscape and visual assessment and is concluded therein the site, while the site will be visible in glimpses views, it would not have a marked effect on the quality, character or setting of the landscape. As regards to archaeological works and the built natural environment, the environmental statement included a cultural heritage and material asset chapter. Officers in consultation with the historic monuments are content that the potential impact of the development and the setting of any monument is acceptable. Number 26, Clanrola Road, is the nearest listed building to the site. The design has been consciously modern so as not to distract from the surrounding historic structure. Furthermore, the type and location of landscaping was carefully considered to ensure the proposal would not cramp the relationship with the listed building. An open field seated in grass will ensure the listed building will not be visually enclosed. As such, while the proposal will visually compete with the setting of this listed building in the short term, Historic Environment Division have advised that there's no significant objection to the proposal and actually welcome the mitigation measures, including the orientation of the oat mill, which are positioned to ensure limited key vistas from the listed building to the north and west will be retained. As regards access, traffic and parking, junction modelling has been prepared for the site access roundabout, which confirms the public road network will continue to function with a high level of service once the mill traffic is included. Parking is adequate to meet the needs of the development, which includes electric car charging points, cycle parking and storage provision has also been included. There is already a footpath along the service road to the public footway on Knockmeena Road, and a Section 76 legal agreement will secure the construction of a second footpath link into the remaining footpaths. Officers in consultation with DFA roads are content that the access and parking arrangements are acceptable. As regards to all other material considerations that are set out within the report, the application has been accompanied by an environmental statement, a flood risk and drainage assessment, a traffic impact assessment, an ecology assessment, a tree survey, a landscape visual impact assessment, a shadow habitat regulations assessment, a landscape management plan, an outline construction environmental management plan, a full drainage plan, an outward sound assessment and economic assessment. These have all been fully appraised by the relevant and competent authorities who have made no objections. Overall, the total economic benefit to Northern Ireland economy is approximately 165 million, and this has been given in weight, although not determined in weight by officers. Finally, there have been no third-party objections to this proposal. Having regard to the above, and after undertaking a policy assessment and plan and balancing exercise, officers of the opinion that post-development complies with the area plan, the SPPS and all other relevant policies. On this basis and subject to conditions attached and the completion of a Section 76 legal agreement, it is recommended that planning permission be granted. And I take it through the slides. So it shows the location within the central area. So it's within the Craigavon urban area, just to the north of where we are at the present time. And that's an aerial view of the proposed site. So outlined in red is the entire content of the site. Next, please. And that's a site location plan outlined in red. That internal road which splits the site is already in situ and has been in situ, has been done by InvestNI, who were the owners of the land. Next slide, please. So that just shows that the area with regards to the Craigavon area plan. So that pink area is the land area zoned as industrial. And if approved, this would be the first development as part of that zoning to be approved in that. Next slide, please. So that's proposed site layout plan, which shows the car parking to the north and the access road in around the back. That shows a proposed landscaping plan around it. So the substantial greenery has been left to allow that there's a natural feeling in the environment. That just shows views of the planting and landscaping works in relation to 26 Clanrola Road, which is the nearest residential property, which within the report is listed. So there was careful consideration was given to the views out into that site in relation to the location of the building and indeed the landscape works as proposed. Next slide, please. So that shows the repairing ground floor plan. The different areas have been coloured, which represents the different processes involved. And that shows the post office floor plans, which will be ancillary to the overall industrial process. And that shows proposed elevations front. As you can see, I suppose described in the report, the layered effect. So the tower, as it gets taller, actually will become lighter in colour, and that will help blend it into the natural environment. And that shows just the west and south rear elevations. So that shows a 3D computer generated massing view just to show the bulk of it. And the tallest part of it only takes up a small section of the overall footprint of the building. And that just shows cross sections through the site. So the site does fall slightly away from Clanrola Road. And there's another cross section through the middle of the site. So it is in a natural dip within the overall land. And there's another cross section taken, so it does fall from Clanrola Road and will be lower from the Mandeville Road as well. That just shows the previous private streets determination drawn that's approved in 1988. You will note that we have asked for a legal 76 legal agreement to ensure the footpath link to the northeast there does be extended and completed as part of this development. That just shows a close up of it. So it's actually there in your northeastern section. It's quite faded, but there is a footpath approved which links into the underground there. So these are computer generated images to show how this would look in the overall landscape. So this is taken from just outside the listed building, the Clanrola Road there, and the view. So as been with the report, we've left the open field immediately to the setting of the listed building to ensure it won't be cramped. And then to the other side of it, there's going to be a landscaping proposed. So that just shows how the layered effect of the mill internally will help reduce the bulk of the overall development. Next slide, please. So that just shows further from the Glenada Road close up, just showing it where after, I think that's 10 to 15 years time with the landscape and then proposed. And there just shows an approach from the Glenmere Road. You can see it in the background there, and the use of materials and decent colours will help reduce the overall impact. That just shows on the Mandeville Road, so it just drops down again, so you can see it there just over the top of that drumlin. Next slide, please. And that's just from the main Mandeville roundabout looking back. So just there in the distance, you can see the sort of white portion of it. So there will be views of it from that particular roundabout. That just shows the listed building, that is number 26. So as said in the report, it's a Georgian building. The views from the front and indeed from the side rear elevation have been protected, and it won't be in any of the views. So the vistas of that building is protected. Just shows it the internal access way into the site at present time, which is currently in situ. It just shows the internal footpaths that are already in place. So they're going to be extended in round to the roundabout to the north. That just shows internally within the site to the left there, that access road will be taking you into the main site, and part of the site will be just in front of you. And that just shows a view to front of the site there as submitted, so that the internal road access is all in place. And that just shows a view looking back towards Mandeville and the housing of the far side there of the Mandeville Road. There's another site in view looking back towards the roundabouts. That's looking towards the roundabout. The structure's not in place, so we're looking to carry on that footpath link to the roundabout to the north. This shows the access location there. And that's just from the roundabout there. So that footpath will actually take place on the right-hand side there. I think that's it. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Sinead. Also present this evening is Trevor Locker, the Chief Executive of Fian Valley, and he is here to make a 3-minute representation as the agent in support of the application. So Trevor, you're very welcome along. You'll probably see a timer on your screen. So whenever you start talking, the clock will start ticking. So in your own time, you can make your announcements. Thank you.
Chairman, members of Planning Committee, firstly, thank you for the opportunity to address you this afternoon in support of this important application. Fian Valley Cooperative, which remains 100% owned by local farmers, acquired White Speedycook in Tandragee in 1992. A significant investment to modernise the mill followed in 1994, and this provided a platform for the business to grow and expand into new markets. 30 years on, the global market for oat-based products continues to grow, underpinned by strong consumer trends in favour of sustainable plant-based foods. This presents Whites with a further opportunity to expand both the volume of product it sells and an opportunity to create new products through research and innovation. Having considered a range of options to further invest in the Tandragee site, the Board of Fian Valley ultimately concluded that the only feasible way to realise the available market opportunities is to relocate the business to another site. An appraisal of potential sites led us to the I&I lands at Mandeville Business Park, which met our key requirements with regard to industrial zoning, size, location to the main arterial road network, and proximity to our current workforce. The core element of the new development will be the erection of the most modern oat mill in the UK or the EU, with adjoining warehouses, offices, and an R&D centre. The design team has taken great care to ensure that the project integrates sensitively within the site and has engaged constructively with all relevant statutory agencies to ensure compliance with appropriate policies and regulations. The project represents the largest single investment to be undertaken by a local agri-food business in many, many years. It will strengthen White's presence in the growing market for oat-based products It will contribute positively to local economic development, and it should serve as a catalyst for the wider development of Mandeville Business Park. Chairman, in concluding, I'd like to place on record our thanks to the council officers for the diligent way in which they have conducted the assessment of our applications, and I or my fellow project team members present this evening would be pleased to respond to any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Trevor. And also present tonight members are James Mathers, the Managing Director of White Speedy Cook, Tony Anson of AJSCC Limited, Gordon Robinson of Integrated Food Projects, and David Donaldson of Donaldson Planning, and they have speaking rights. So members, should you have any queries, you can direct them to those members also present. So have we any questions or queries for our planner or for any of our speakers? Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and great plans for the future and going ahead. It's just the old site had any plans for it, or of anything they can tell us if they can possible?
Yes, I'll answer that.
James, yeah.
Yeah, if that's okay. So at the moment, we have no definite plans. As we'd indicated in the pre-application, we would consider that in due course, and it is the intention of Whites and Fane Valley to ensure that whatever ends up being on the Tandragee site will contribute to the local area and the local community positively. But we have no firm plans as it stands at the moment, and are just focused on the application.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, members? No, that's a good sign. Everyone's done their work on this one appropriately, which is good to hear. I suppose just from my own perspective, I take it, should permission go ahead this evening, the build plan for the project, what do you estimate that to be?
I'll maybe ask Tony to answer that one, if that's okay, Chair.
Yeah, hi there. I mean, the intention is that we need to get through this process together with the judicial review, plan our activities to make a start on site. Start on site would be something around June, July this summer, and construction period would be something in the order of 20 months from start to finish. Within that, there is obviously a plant installation, testing, commissioning, and things are then up and running to full production. So that's roughly the timescale for the project.
Okay, thank you. Don't see any other lights on, members. Sort of reading that we're fairly content at this point, so we'll move into the debate phase and decision. Members, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's excellent to see more investment coming into the borough, and especially with Fane Valley supporting our local agri-foods industry. And it sounds a very exciting enterprise for them to, obviously they're iconic in Tandragee, but I suppose if they want to expand and grow, they need this facility, and it's excellent to see this investment within our borough. It can only be welcomed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just that sort of echo what Councillor Wilson said. You know, Sinead gave a very comprehensive report and covered all the queries that I might have. And also Trevor, his enthusiasm for the business and the way forward and their commitment to the borough was really great to hear as well. And, you know, it's also good to see that these Invest NI lands are being used. And as Trevor said, hopefully this will be a catalyst for that particular part of the borough. So, you know, exciting times ahead, and it's very much welcome, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I would like to concur with what has already been said. Another exciting project, this application coming to Central Craigavon, and we certainly welcome that. more economic value coming into the borough and increasing jobs in the future. It's something that this borough has always tried to do to help and bring forward projects, and certainly the Event Valley project coming to Craigavon is greatly welcome, and I think we just need more of these, and this one certainly fits the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Chair. I would concur with those previous speakers. I think I'll be leaning to, accepting the recommendation. This area is zoned for industry, and it's certainly an exciting project going forward. In particular, I would like to, highlight the additional footpath connection to the northeast of the site to improve interconnectivity, not only for those accessing the site, but those in the wider area. I think this kind of activities to be welcomed, as it will help encourage those workers from that sort of central area to take the opportunity to travel to the site on foot or cycle, indeed from further afield, and the integrated segregated cycle network in Craigavon. So overall, I think it's a positive application to be leaning to support come decision time.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Councillor Magalinden.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Trevor, for that report as well. In terms of jobs, Trevor, construction and long term, do you have a number? Thanks.
Thank you, Trevor.
Chair, just further, we anticipate there being an additional 30 jobs will be appointed over time in skilled areas of engineering, production, product development, etc. And obviously there will be a significant number of jobs in the interim during the construction phase. That would bring a total ongoing employment, hopefully within Whites, to somewhere between 90 and 100 employees when it's fully established.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Twyble.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and really just to again welcome this and say that as a one-time teacher of geography, I remember teaching about the development of Craigavon and the creation of industrial areas and all the rest of it, and to see that this again is a wonderful block in the wall, as it were, and I very much welcome this.
Thank you. I suppose from my own perspective, maybe a question for James in terms of going back to the Tandragee site. Obviously, it's an important site to the town and a very strong historical link there with the oats being produced there. I'm just wondering in terms of, I know you touched on it briefly, but is it ultimately the aim that everything would be relocated eventually out there and then a completely different use for that site, or how do you see that progressing? Just given that Tandragee would be within my own DEA, I would just be keen to understand that forward thinking sort of element of it.
Certainly, I'll try to answer that. So at the moment, our plan is to, if approval's granted and the project's built, to transfer the production that currently exists and the capacity that exists within Tandragee over to the new site, and then stop the oat milling operation here in Tandragee. There will be some operational need to keep some activity here for a period of transition while the new site gets commissioned and is fully up and running. So it'll be probably well beyond the completion of the project that there'll be some activity continuing on around the Tandragee site. In terms of, as I said before, any sort of thinking further than that, we have not done that. It could be that we use it and continue to use the site as part of the operations within Whites, or that it's we seek a different purpose for it. But we will only make that decision in the interim once we are sure about the sort of plan and how we're going to be progressing. But at this stage, the intention is to move that milling capability and capacity which exists in Tandragee over to the new site in Mandeville when it's fully operational.
Okay, thanks for that clarity. Okay, members, I don't see any other hands up or lights on, so if we could move then to the decision phase, I'm open to proposals, Alderman Anderson?
Thank you, Chair. And after hearing all those positive comments and the exciting application before us, it's certainly something we're looking forward to, and I would be very happy to propose that we accept the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Duffy.
Yes, Chair. Very happy to second the recommendation. Agree with everything that's been said here on it. Thank you.
Okay, members, I don't see any other lights on or hands up. We'll take we're all agreed on that front. And with that being the case, then we'll thank our contributors there to the application, and you're free to go now. Thanks for joining us. Okay, members, we'll move on then we'll skip back to Appendix 4 at this point. This is LAOA 2022-0654F, and Sinead again is delivering the presentation on this one. So Sinead, when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The application seeks full planning permission for the erection of a new manufacturing and engineering factory with ancillary canteen, toilet facilities and office block. And the reason is before the Planning and Regulatory Service Committee is because it's a major application. Officers taken the members have read the report in full, and as such this is a synopsis only. The site is located within the development limit of Craigavon urban area as defined by the Craigavon area plan and zoned predominantly as existing industrial land, but the eastern section of the site is zoned as land zoned for industry. That zoning has 6 key site requirements, and the application meets all those that are relevant to the proposal. Officers are of the opinion that proposed use is acceptable in principle. As regards to the design, siting, layout, materials and landscape treatment, the proposal, the buildings will measure approximately 4,023 square metres with a ridge height of 10.6 metres above ground level. The office element would have a flat roof, and the walls are finished in panels with substantial glazing at the entrance. A band of existing trees are located along the access way, which are to be retained, except for those required to be removed to facilitate the access. Additional planting is proposed along the northern boundary of the site, and officers have recommended the inclusion of a condition requiring a buffer planting along this boundary to help obscure views of the site from the dwellings at Balnacore Meadows. A noise and air quality impact assessment has been submitted, and officers in consultation with the Council's Environmental Health Department, following due consideration of the information submitted, have no concerns in relation to noise or odour emissions. Furthermore, due to the layout and separation distances, the proposal will not overshadow or adversely impact light to any nearby property. The access and parking associated with the development is considered to be acceptable. There is an existing footpath along the frontage of the site, which is connected to a footpath onto the Charlestown Road, which links to the Carn Road. An assessment of the suitability of habitat and features within the entire site and wider area for potential use by a range of protected species, including bats, breeding birds, badgers and smooth newt, was undertaken, and following due consideration with the National Environment Division, officers have no objection. Drainage and impact on the sewer network have been fully considered and appraised by both Rivers Agency and Northern Water, who have offered no objections to the proposal. The proposal is for a new state-of-the-art building and is envisaged employs an additional 20 to 25 people with investment around the range of 8 to 10 million. There have been one objection to the proposal, and the scheme had been altered accordingly in light of that objection submitted. So having regard to the above, and after undertaking a policy assessment and planning balancing exercise, officers are of the opinion that the proposed development complies with the area plan, the strategic plan and policy statement, and all other relevant planning policies. And on that basis, and subject to the conditions attached within your report, it is recommended that planning permission be granted. I'm taking through the slides. So it just shows location of the site within the general area. So it's the northwest of Craigavon urban area within the current industrial estate. And that's an aerial view of the proposed site outlined in red, and adjacent on the southeast or southwest is J Power. And that shows the site location plan, the site outlined in red. That shows the site in relation to the Craigavon area plan outlined in blue. As you can see, a small portion to the northeast is zoned as proposed industry, while the light pink is existing industry, but they're all zoned for industrial purposes. That shows proposed site layout, so it's set back slightly from what previously was proposed. It was set a wee bit forward. An objection came in from the adjacent property to say about impact on their light into their offices, so it was moved back slightly. And that shows the elevation treatment of it in relation to the engineering operation. See to the front elevation, there's glass for the guard to the office development. That just shows a section through the site. So to the east there is the dwellings of Banbridge Meadows and then separation distances. This just shows a photo from in the site. So that landscaping as referred to in the report is along the access way. So that has to be retained apart from the area that needs to be removed for just for the access coming in and out. That's just a look at up the site. That's AJ Power adjacent to it. You can see the sort of glazed area to the front, which they objected to in relation to light into their offices, so it was set back. And that just shows looking towards the rear of the site. You can sort of see in the background there the housing at Ballinagore Meadows. There is landscaping proposed along there to fill in that gap, but we have conditioned it to add more so that it's actually a landscape buffer. And there just shows it just further to the rear. That just shows exactly the rear boundary. So you can see a bit of area of bund in there. So that is all to be landscaped out. It just shows the existing fencing between the site and AJ Power, which is to be retained as part of this application. So that just shows the looking view towards the site internally and the footpath link across the front. So in the same way with AJ Power, which was approved by this planning committee, they have allowed access. So a small portion of the landscape was taken away, but the rest can be retained. Thank you, members.
Okay, thank you, Sinead. So no one present that I'm aware of on this one. So members, if you have any queries or questions for Sinead? No, it's a good sign again. I'm not going to drag it out. So if we've nobody speaking, we'll move over through then to the debate and decision format. And I suppose from my perspective, it's good to see a new facility in a zone designated for such facilities. So that's a positive, and it's a positive for the borough as well from our manufacturing standpoint. Councillor McAlinden.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Sinead. And just really, it's another local business expanding, and it's great to see them. And hopefully, if approved, it secures the jobs already there, and hopefully bring more jobs in the borough. So it just has to be welcomed anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Twyble.
Yes, again, Mr. Chairman, it's really just to welcome this and to take note that in the report we had there that there was obviously some consultation with the neighbourhood housing and so on, and an agreement made that they would move the development a little away further. And obviously that is a good sign again of cooperation and working things out. So I welcome the whole report.
Thank you. Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sinead, for that full report. Another exciting application, and we seem to be having a good day today as regarding more applications of this nature coming in to this borough and in around the areas, and providing more jobs. And it's something we need to see and continue to do, and to encourage more of these applications and these companies to give us more employment, and I have to be congratulated the company here as well for their initiative in this one, and hopefully it will continue to expand in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sinead. And I'd like to thank Damien and all the planners for all the work they're doing on getting investment like this to actually stay and grow within our borough. It just sends a wider message that we are the place to be. Thank you.
Okay. Don't see any other indications, members, so we'll move to the decision phase. Councillor McAlinden.
Thank you, Chair. Content to accept the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second that proposal.
Okay. I don't see any other proposals there, so members are all agreed. That being the case, we will move then to Appendix 6, which is taken by Nicola Craney. Nicola, when you're ready, you can commence.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for a play area with a 1.2 metre high fence at the Birches, and it's been submitted by Council. There are no consultee or third-party objections to the proposal. The overall play area measures 80 square metres set on a resin-bound rubber mulch surfacing, and there's 9 pieces of playground equipment with 2 pieces of furniture, which is a bench and a bin, proposed for the development. There's an inclusive pod swing, a swing set with 1 cradle seat and 1 0G inclusive seat, a swing set with 2 flat seats, an inclusive wheelchair roundabout, an accessible spring rocker, an inclusive multi-activity play unit, a further multi-activity play unit, a virtuoso tube chime, auditory sensory play panel, and giant knots and crosses visual tactile sensory play panel. And as said, it'll be accompanied with a seating bench and a litter bin. The principle of development is acceptable, as this is an existing area of open space, and the proposal complies with policy OS1 of PPS 8, which is outdoor space and open space and outdoor recreation. The design and layout are acceptable, and there's no impact on the streetscape or adjacent residential amenity. There's available on-street car parking, and most users will be able to walk to the site. And finally, there's no impact on natural heritage features. The details are all within the case report. And the recommendation is to approve. And I'll just go through the presentation. Thank you. Next slide. So the site, as I say, is at the Birches, just beside Mount Hall. Next slide, please. This is the aerial view of the site. Next slide, please. The site location plan. Next slide, please. The site location, then layout and some details then in terms of the proposal. Next slide, please. The proposed equipment. Next slide, please. Just some visuals of the proposal. Next slide, please. This is then a view then to the site from Robinsonstown. Next slide. A view then from Mount Hall. Next slide, please. A view of the site then just looking up, it's just adjacent to the Clonmacate Road. Next slide, please. And then a view from Mount Hall then looking down towards the site. Next slide, please. I think that is the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Members, again, have we any queries or questions for Nicola? Councillor Duffy?
Thank you, Nicola, for the report. Just have you any idea or timescale of when it will be delivered and it will be welcomed within the whole of the Birches community area? You don't know when it's going to actually be up and running?
Thank you, Councillor. We don't have the details of the timescale actually for putting it in, but I'm aware David Lemon from the council has been dealing with the application, and he has been in touch to find out when it's going to committee, because they're keen to make progress on it. So I'm sure it will be implemented quite quickly after the decision is made.
Thank you. Any other questions or queries? I don't see any, so we'll move to the debate and decision phase. Members, Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Nicola. Yes, this is a long-awaited play facility that has been much needed in the Burgess area. It's an area that hasn't had much as far as comes to play facilities, and it certainly will be welcomed by the Burgess community and the young people down there, that they would have this up and running ASAP. But maybe it's the start of getting more facilities into that rural area in the future. And it comes on the back recently of one that has recently opened at Scott Street. So it's good to see that this council is able to go out and bring these facilities to the communities where they're much needed. So thanks again.
Thank you. Alderman Twyble.
Yes, again, Mr. Chairman, happy to welcome and happy to second. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Moutry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And yes, I just want to concur with Alderman Anderson's comments. It's great to see another facility come to fruition and meet all aspects of the report and the public consultation. And I know this is very well sought after by the sort of wider Burgess community. And yes, I just want to welcome this, and yes, it'll be great to see this come to light. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members don't see any other lights on, so we'll move then to the final decision. Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. And as I've said, a much welcome facility. I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm happy to propose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Duffy.
Yes, Chair, just delighted to second it. Thank you. And thanks to the council for bringing this forward, and hopefully it's can keep the children in the school instead of out in the play park.
Thank you. Okay, members, then we're agreement on that. I don't see any to the contrary. So with that being the case, that is our final application as far as I'm aware. And so thanks for your cooperation and help tonight. And we'll see you at the next one. So if we could stop the live feed.